I don't know if you can hear the Paw Patrol in the front, but I have another story I want to talk about today. It's called The Strange Disappearance of Thomas Meehan. If you're a fan of Beyond Belief, this one might sound familiar to you. The strange disappearance of Thomas P. Meehan, a 38-year-old Concord, California attorney and a referee for the State Department of Employment Appeals Bureau on February 1st, 1963, would seem to suggest that a bizarre kind of distortion of time occurred in some mysterious manner. Meehan left Eureka for Concord at about 2 p.m. He drove as far as Myers Flat before he stopped to telephone his wife and complained that he felt ill. She told him to stop and spend the night at a motel and not try to drive through. Okay, she must have been a very loving wife. Or just past the bullshit. Because what self-respecting wife would tell her husband to stop at a motel and stay overnight? He better have that FaceTime on the whole time. It is from this point on that the time sequence becomes most confusing, all the more so when the startling climax of the day's events is realized. Approximately 5 p.m., Meehan checked into the 40 Winks Motel at Redway. Okay, it's called the 40 Winks? Come on. Who's doing the winking? What's winking exactly? Approximately 6 p.m., the attorney drove to the Southern Humboldt Community Hospital at Garberville to see a doctor. So he checks in around 5. At around 6, he's at the hospital trying to see a doctor. At 6:45, Meehan told the nurse that he felt as if he were dead. While she was checking him in and before he had seen a doctor, Meehan disappeared. Okay, so he was there for 45 minutes trying to see a doctor. And in that 45 minutes, they hadn't even got to him, so he disappeared. There's nothing out of the ordinary there. He probably just got sick and tired of waiting and left. At 7 p.m., a Myers Flat couple told the highway patrol that they had seen the taillights of a car on Highway 101 drive into the Eel River. Okay, so that kind of checks out. 6:45, he's gone. At 7 p.m., 15 minutes later, a couple sees him drive into the Eel River. If it was called Eel River, I would have drove the opposite direction. Either way, at 8 p.m., attorney Meehan was talking with Chip Noonamaker, the owner of the 40 Winks Motel. Meehan asked the innkeeper, "Do I look like I'm dead? I feel like I've died and the whole world died with me." Noonamaker noticed that Meehan's shoes and trouser cuffs appeared wet and muddy. At 9 p.m., Meehan went to his room. 9:30 p.m., motel employee Harry Young went to Meehan's room to tell him that the call he had put through to Mrs. Meehan could not be completed because a storm had disrupted telephone services. Young saw that Meehan had changed into a black suit and a white shirt. At 10:45 p.m., the highway patrol found Meehan's car submerged in the Eel River, its tail lamps still shining like beacon lights for the searchers. Skid marks indicated that the vehicle had gone off the highway at a high speed. Officers found blood on top of the car. The right front window of the car was open. Meehan was nowhere in sight, but droplets of blood and muddy footprints led up the bank for 30 feet, then vanished. No trace of Thomas Meehan was found. Then, 19 days later, his body was discovered in the Eel River near Myers Flat, 16 miles downstream from where Meehan's car had veered into the river. The evidence of the autopsy suggested that the attorney had survived the crash with a superficial head wound, then later had died of drowning. Did Thomas P. Meehan's illness and confused state of mind lead him to weave in and out of hospital and motel rooms and into a cold and swirling river? Or did that same confused but powerful mind exert an influence upon time and space? If Meehan's automobile went into the river at 7 p.m., and it must have since no other automobiles were reported missing or were ever found in the river on that date, then how did he appear back at the motel to chat for an hour between 8 and 9 p.m. with the owner? Chip Noonamaker did take note of Meehan's muddy shoes and trouser cuffs and the attorney's repeated complaint that he felt as if he were dead. Employee Harry Young saw Meehan at 9:30 p.m. and observed that Meehan had changed out of his wet clothing. Had Nunemaker and Young actually talked with the dead man? Although Meehan did not appear without a trace forever, he certainly did disappear and reappear all during the evening of February 1st. And after he was last seen by Harry Young in his motel room, Meehan's body was not found until February 20th. I mean, this isn't out of the realm of possibilities, because they saw his footprints coming out of the riverbank. So who's to say he didn't wander back to the motel? He got tired of waiting at the hospital, left around 6:45, drove off of a sighting, went into the river, climbed back out, went to the motel. Maybe he was concussed. Maybe he hit his head on the steering wheel a bit too hard. They did see the back window or one of the windows open, so he was able to get out. They didn't find his body after all until 19 days later. Meehan's car was seen to plunge into the Eel River at about the same time he was sitting in the hospital in Garberville waiting to see a doctor. The police found drops of blood and muddy footprints that led up the bank for 30 feet before they simply vanished. Could Meehan have made his way back to the 40 Winks Motel? Or did Thomas Meehan actually die by drowning when his automobile went into the river at about 7 p.m.? Could his ill and confused mind and the will to live have projected an image of himself to the nurse, to Nunemaker, to Young, while his actual physical shell floated lifeless in the Eel River? I don't think that's the case here. I think what could have happened is what I said earlier. He could have just dug himself out of the river, went back to the motel, had a conversation, but maybe he wasn't all there. And maybe he walked back out at some point in the night looking for his car. Maybe he lost his footing, went into the bank of the river, floated back down. 19 miles or however many miles down the river. That's what seems logical to me. The author Ambrose Bierce wrote a remarkable short story entitled An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. In this tale, a man sentenced to a wartime death by hanging from the girders of a bridge is able to visualize the rope breaking and an escape from his captors, all in the split second of reality before the taut rope snaps his neck and snuffs out his life spark. Could the dying Thomas Meehan have discovered... Uh-oh, you caught me. Could Thomas Meehan have discovered the same relativity of time, and could his mind in an altered state of consciousness have manipulated man-made time in a manner that would confuse all those who insist on measuring the passage of moments by the movement of a clock hand? Could the dying Thomas Meehan have wavered between dimensions of time? Sorry, my daughter just came in. Anyways, that's all I got for now. My daughter's in here making a mess. I will catch y'all on the flip side. Peace out.